death, killed. These are the newspaper headlines after that bombing in Beirut, Lebanon in July 2006. You can imagine if bombing of that magnitude had have been inflicted upon any North American city, what the national and international outcry would have been, splashing and smearing the name of the bombing nation across every headline. But the difference here is that the bombing was made by Israel, and the victims were innocents, including children, so the name Israel has to be scraped off of the headlines of every Canadian newspaper, and this is what struck me as soon as I passed by these newspaper boxes. If you follow the Israeli agenda as long as I have, you understand that Israelis in the interests of Jewish religious groups control the media, but it is hard sometimes to prove it, but proving it here is irrefutable, that the Israeli agenda has reached every single newspaper being offered in downtown Toronto. Even though they did not kill Hezbollah members, Israel still blamed Hezbollah and the families for not just leaving their buildings as if they could go anywhere in the middle of an Israeli airstrike. And it is because of this killing with impunity why Jewish groups and Israelis require organizations like the ADL to prevent Jews from being condemned or hated for such murderous arrogance. Israelis might say, well, you're just ignorant, you should go read a book or educate yourself about the conflict instead of looking at these murders and talking about them and drawing attention to them. But the reality is that Israeli infiltration even reached me at my former employer KPMG Inc., where they had a government spy named Marian Knoll, and when I mentioned these newspaper boxes to her, she was all ears, so that Canada was and is under Zionist occupation is without refute here. If you say things like Jews are on Hollywood or the corporate media, the response is, so what? Well, the so what factor here is rather grave. The public is being conditioned by scraping the name Israel off the news headlines that if you're not with the Israeli agenda, you're just not with liberalism. If you support social justice, you will support Israel's sacred and holy terrorism, else you're a Nazi, racist, or white supremacist. And now that this has reached social platforms like YouTube, with Jewish groups regularly censoring anything which is critical of Israel, like this video, it censors every crime as to control every aspect of Israel's narrative, which is based on nothing more than Bible stories, which could have been invented by anyone.